Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Never Mind the Buy Box. This afternoon, I am joined by Operations Manager for Prepared for You Prep Centre, Eddy Holmes. Hi, Eddie. Eddy Holmes. Sorry, not Holmes. Holmes. Sorry. How are you, Eddie?
I'm not so bad, thanks. How are you? You having a good
Yeah.
day?
Yeah, very. Yeah, I'm a little bit like I've been running around. I was saying to you beforehand, had to do some yodel drops beforehand because we sell quite a lot on Vinted now, returns and things like that. And most people select Yodel to send it, which I don't know why. And unfortunately, the only dispatch center that we've got for Yodel is like on the other side of town. And I literally had what I was holding out, and I only had a couple that needed to go. And of course, what happens? Drive over there. As soon as I get back, ka-ching, got some more.
No.
So I only try to go over there a couple of times a week. So anyway, so yes, I was saying to Eddie, I'd misjudged the traffic. I was taking time. I was brushing my hair when I went on the live with Eddie because I'd like literally looked like I've been dragged through a hedge backwards, and then I bumped into someone that I knew, and they started chit chatting, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, great, yeah, woohoo, and gotta go kind of thing. So yeah, apart from that, we're all good. So how is everyone? Let us know if you can see and hear us okay. We've got Cindy. She has joined us, which is always a pleasure. I'm going to find the comments because I never seem to get them, even though I'm more prepared than normal. Here we go. Hang on a sec. Just wait for those comments to come up. Cindy said, I've got my coffee and my toast and I'm taking a break. Well, this is the time we do it. Grab a cup of tea, grab a cup of coffee, grab some toast, a sandwich, Greg's sausage roll, whatever you want to do, and come join us so we can talk about prep. So I'm just going to log into the other live. There we go as well. Phil's joined us as well. Phil was on last week. I don't know if anyone saw last week's Never Mind the Buy Box with Phil. We were talking about eBay. If you haven't watched it already, go ahead and watch it. There was some eBay golden nuggets being thrown around like nobody's business. So it's definitely good to, go back and watch that one if you haven't got already. We've got a little bit of an Eddie fan club, I think, in today as well. We've got Leon saying hi. Long time no see. Eddie, that's James that's saying that. Yeah, so everyone say hi and welcome Eddie. Any questions that you've got as you go along, when we're talking about prep or anything like that. So the purpose of today is to get somebody on who, ultimately you're not a prep center owner, but you are, you manage operations at Prepared for You, and to get your insight on, a few things that people may or may not know about the world of prep, but also, market conditions, costings, pricing, considerations people might want to think about when, taking on a prep center, things that might help with people's own self prep, all of these different types of elements. That's why I wanted to get on a true prep professional to be able to talk through all of these exciting and very sexy prep subjects. Of course, there's nothing sexier than prep, right, Eddie?
Oh, right. I mean, it's one of the most overlooked things in Amazon, but it's such a crucial part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those areas that it sounds easy, but there's so many kind of moving parts, and it does take it does take a while to get used to it. And, people tend to go through different journeys. I wrote a post a little while ago. I hate prep. Exactly. I hate prep too. I'm not allowed to prep. I've said it many, many times. I am not allowed to prep. I make too many mistakes. I'm too careless with it because I'm like, oh, I hate it. There is no enthusiasm in it in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not even going to pretend that I like it at all. So
it's one of those things, unfortunately, though, that as much as a lot of people don't like doing it because it is so time consuming and detracts from a lot of things that help you to scale your business. It's one of those things that I feel is very important for a seller to learn to do from home, because
Absolutely.
then you kind of know what to expect and how long things take. So that helps you get a rough idea of, when you do finally move over to a prep center, of just the difference it is making to your life. It's quite easy for people to run before they can walk, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are many, many factors and considerations that someone should really, take on board before they go ahead and employ a prep center, for a number of different reasons. We'll come on to, expectation, service, cost, cash flow, all of these different types of things. Sometimes you've got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. There's things like, if you are not based in the UK, how do you deal with returns? How do you deal with all this? There's a lot of factors involved, and employing a prep center sounds like an easy option, but actually it can be as time consuming as doing prep yourself, but it just in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for some people, they might, depending on how they handle their Amazon business and, sort of how much they outsource to people like VAs and stuff. Obviously, they can free up so much time during the day, but it's really important to maintain a good relationship with a company that's responsible for handling all of your products. One of the biggest issues that we see in the sort of prep environment is things reaching us before they've actually been put onto an inbound sheet. The time that could be saved, especially for sellers, especially for sellers, if they just made sure that their stuff was listed before it reached the prep center, it'd mean that a service such as ourselves could seamlessly do their job without having to be like, hi, can you just, would you mind? It's such a small part of it, but it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And no comment. So yeah, I know I'm guilty of that, definitely, for sure. So yeah, I feel like that was like a golden nugget and a slap wrist for me at the same time. Definitely. Right. Well, we're going to come on. We're going to talk hopefully about a lot more golden nuggets. Just want to say hello to a few people. Cindy said it won't let me love the live. How rude. Facebook saying that I'm spamming. Oh, how weird. Well, keep trying to love us. We all, everyone loves a bit of love for sure. Jay's joined us. Afternoon, Jay. Hope you're well. Just saying, Phil said, be interesting to see thoughts on eBay prep, having it fulfilled from a prep center from last week. So we'll come on and talk about that a bit later on with some of the services that you can expect from a prep center. Because again, that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about, to kind of lift the lid on what a prep center does. It's not, it's not always just the case of relabeling and sending it in. Generally, when you find a good prep center, you're able to, provide different types of services and things that might help you scale or facilitate your business. But as ever, this isn't a sales pitch. This is really to be able to open people's eyes in terms of what is available. And we were talking, Eddie and I, beforehand, and, having been in this business for quite a long time, July and August are the consideration months, for anyone selling in this business. It tends to be when you get that combination, a little bit of summer slowdown, maybe you're taking a bit of time off with the kids, that sort of things. You take your eye off the ball a little bit sometimes here, and people start thinking about what they want to do halfway through the year. What do I want to achieve for the rest of the year? Do I want to be doing this? If I'm prepping myself, is this the time that I'm thinking about maybe moving to a prep center, or can I make my facilitations easier, that type of thing? Because like we were saying beforehand, if there's one time that, if you're going to try a prep center, is a good time to trial them out before you make any decisions over Q4 is around now, essentially, because I'm a big believer in, if they can't handle your business now, they won't be able to do so in November and December.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Q3 gives you enough time to sort of figure out how the service works, what they can do for you, what you can do for them, iron out all those little creases so that you're not left with 4 pallets of stock that you need to find somewhere to send in the height of Q4 because you found a really good deal. And now you've got to ring around everywhere and see who's still taking on at the back end of the year and having to learn a new system at the busiest time of the year. I mean, maybe you just get into that stage where, you know, you're having to move your boxes to go to the toilet so that, you know, you can get the boxes out the door ready for UPS picking them up or something. You know, now is that sort of crucial time to sort of evaluate from an affordability point of view and from a prep perspective, like how much more time could you put into your business or your family by having those few extra hours a day that you wouldn't normally have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everything's a trade-off. You know, these are the considerations that you're going to think about. Yes, you're going to get time back, but it's going to cost you. You know, it's as simple as that. You have to expect certain trade-offs within this business. And, you know, time, Matthew Wright talks about this a lot. What's the value of your time? You know, what price do you put on your time? He talks about it a lot in the Hive and those sort of places. And it's so true. I think when it comes to prep, without being disrespectful, it is the thing in the business. I know we were saying beforehand, the systems and everything's complex and everything like that. But in terms of the actual prepping, it's not a skilled job essentially. So it's, for me, it's one of the running it and putting it all together. Absolutely, that requires, I don't think people realize the complexities with regards to that, but it's one of those things that if you were to add up how much time it takes you versus what it brings you, I actually think self prep is only valuable for the exact reasons that you've said, in terms of learning the system, you know, how it works, you know, what you can spot. I'm a big advocate of that. I never and ever encourage anybody to, you know, a few years ago, it was all the rage to, you know, outsource, you know, these done for you kind of businesses, you know, get a prep center straight away, get VAs straight away. But, you know, you're never learning the business, unfortunately. Everyone's got to put in that graft, I think, to learn it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. However, you know, without seeming like you know, I'm trying to contradict what you're saying, because that's not the case at all. It might not be the most skilled, but it is one that attention to detail is the
absolutely
biggest.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Amazon have got such strict policies and procedures specifically for prep. I mean, you can spend hours reading their sort of terms and conditions for sort of prep for different products. So whilst yes, it might be one of the longest and most laborious tasks, if you don't get it right, you'll soon know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we had, you know, in one of our accounts today, we had some shipment issues in terms of, I mean, I'll be honest, it was Amazon. You know, it's one of those things. I think what I'm trying to say is pick the right type of people to work with services and things like that, because Amazon give you enough grief. You know, you don't want to make life harder for yourself. That's, you know, that's what I'm trying to say essentially. But just touching on that, that's a really interesting point. So thank you for bringing it up, Eddy. You know, attention to detail, you're absolutely right. I do think the best preppers, you know, that's why when we had Easy Prep and Matt had that, he's a massive attention to detail. I am, but only if it interests me. Whereas, yeah, Matt is definitely, you know, attention to detail. And I think that's why it works really well for him. So talk to us about that from a prep center's point of view. So, of course, I've got 2 you know, questions here. One, what do you look out for? What do you do as a prep center that alerts the customer to, you know, any type of situation? And 2, how much can you factor in due to, as a prep center, do you have any kind of KPIs in terms of, because what I'm trying to say is obviously things like that is a human eye and you have human error, of course, and it would be unreasonable to expect that there's 100% perfect rate all the time. I think that's important to get across because, you know, when you're dealing with humans, you know, there is always human error.
Yeah, absolutely. So Prepared for You has a three-stage quality control process. Obviously, I can't speak for the prep centres, so I'll just sort of describe ours to you. Initially, when a product's booked in, we'll inspect the product for any damages. We'll make the client aware so that as soon as we know there's a problem, they receive there's photographs that are taken that are sent over to them through Skype. And they're given the order number and everything, so they can chase it up with their supplier and catch that crucial return window. But let's say everything moves on fine from there, then just before the shipment's packed, it's all laid out and inspected again, just in case for any reason something was missed the first time, or if on the very rare chance that it's, let's say somebody's took it out of box and dropped it, for example, it's then re-inspected, and then once it's been prepped, it's then quality checked again, just to make sure that there's nothing happened in the meantime, or to make sure that all the barcodes are covered, and to make sure that everything is to as high a level as possible. Because whilst Prepared for You might be a large prep center, it's very much got the heart of a small company. Everybody that works in there is taught, like, treat that person's products as if they were your own, because the second you sort of dehumanize it, because it's that person's livelihood, then you're starting to compromise your quality of service and the level of service that you're giving to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can, by the way, I can back it up as well, because I use Prepared for You. Just want to throw that out there as well. And, so I wholeheartedly, recommend you guys. You really do have some fantastic systems, quality controls, and things like that in place. But like I said, I don't want this is not about us selling it. I just, I'm being transparent. I do use Prepared for You in part of the business. So, I just wanted to throw that out there as well. And, it's Matt that runs that side of it, and he's very happy with everything. And, he's fussy as anything. So, if he's happy, I'm happy. That's the way of life for sure. Okay, so then with regards to that kind of human eye, so talk to us about, you see something, it's all good, everything's fine, but then I don't know, maybe someone's not feeling too great and they miss something. What happens in that scenario? Because I think this is, sorry to interrupt, I think this is one of the sticking points where I often see people having social media rows where there's not a good level of communication. And that's why people sometimes are like, oh, I just let it go. Whereas yeah, well, I'll let you answer. Okay.
So are you meaning from a it's already in Amazon point of view, or like it's already been prepped?
Yeah, I suppose from a let's I mean, like Cindy said there, what if something is accidentally labeled incorrectly by the prep center, which, like I said, rare, but does happen, because we're dealing with humans, right?
So in the rare instance that would happen, we would recall the entire shipment, or we'd request that you'd recall the entire shipment. Then we'll individually inspect every single unit that's gone in, and we'll reprep it free of charge and then get it sent back in for you. Obviously covering the costs, because it's not something that we would want you to have to pay twice for something that's not your fault. And
Okay.
on the rare instance that it does happen, we have held our hands up and gone, look, we're sorry, if you get it sent back to us, we'll deal with it, we'll send it back in.
Perfect. I don't think you can do anything more than that. And anyone expecting anything more than that is expecting a free lunch, essentially, because, you're not asking for any more money, and, you're not giving any money back, because I don't actually think in those cases refunding and doing things free of charge is not conducive to anyone, because at the end of the day, we're all in this, hopefully, because we want to support other people's businesses. We're in these networks because we want to support other people's businesses. And I'm a firm believer in treat others as you would treat yourself, otherwise it comes back and bites you on the bum. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So that's good. So you openly encourage communication. If there's a problem, don't sit in silence, reach out. And that's not just you, but that's your advice to anyone using a prep center.
Yeah, absolutely. We have account handlers, which are people that, unless there's holidays or sickness, they're the only person that deals with your account. So you get to develop a really sort of personalized experience with that person, so they learn how you work, you learn how they work. So eventually, you know, you get to that sort of mutual understanding together where you're working flawlessly and you can have a bit of a laugh and a joke with people, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You've got to have a sense of humor in this business because you ain't going to get it from Amazon.
No, of course.
That's for sure. So, a quick question that Cindy's got here is: do you have many bundlers that you prep for? Obviously, we know bundles are big business in this group here, but she means tricky bundles, not 3 packs of Marmite. So, well, you know what type of bundles we're talking about because you guys are in the hive anyway as well. So, like bundle option 4, bundle option 5.
Yeah, we do have a few. We've actually got so many unique bundles that come through the warehouse that we've set up our own designated unique bundle area. So everybody gets their own space for their own products. We've moved our vacuum seal around there so that we can give the cleanest, best prep for those unique bundles possible. We also have like a copy of the bundle itself printed out and laminated so that each person that's packing it, whether it's like the regular packers that do it every day or it's somebody covering for holiday or sickness, so they can see exactly what that product's supposed to look like and which order it's meant to go in, so that it's delivering the highest service possible and the most consistent service possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Yeah, like what Cindy says, unique bundle area makes it very special indeed. I think, that's one of the things I love to see and I love advocating because at the end of the day, when we started talking more about unique bundles and obviously teaching the method and things like that, certainly for the first couple of years, it was quite restrictive for people because, people loved the idea but hated the thought of doing, the prep themselves. But at the same time, it's not something that like a standard 3P hour is going to do for you because like Cindy's talking about, some of them can be a bit tricky. They can be a bit fiddly. And when it comes to creating costs in relation to, like everything, time versus money, there has to be a certain amount of money that, that is attributed to the prep of those. And sometimes it might not be worth it because some of them are pretty fiddly kind of thing. So the fact is that, you've got great service prep centers like Prepared for You who are supporting so many people that have discovered this way of selling on Amazon and that are also facilitating it for people that maybe couldn't do it before. So that's why I wanted to get you guys on here as well, because it's a bit like dangling a carrot in front of people and sort of like saying, yeah, I can teach you this fantastic way, but unless you want to prep yourself, there's no other options essentially. So it's good that it's almost like something's been created and then a whole new thing's been created again to facilitate that, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I mean, it's even changed like the way that we have our sheets laid out. So we've now introduced specifically a unique bundling part of it. And I would say that a large part of it has stemmed from the hive. We had a couple of people beforehand, but obviously thanks to all the hard work that you've done generating all the different unique bundles, it's introduced a lot of people to this method. And I mean, people that work full-time jobs alongside Amazon, they're able to develop those unique bundles and then have them taken care of somewhere else. So, they might only have time at home to pack 4 or 5 of those a night, whereas us doing it, they can get 15 times that stock out a day.
Yeah, and that's the key part, actually. That's a really interesting observation, which I think, like this time versus money, coming back to that as well, but also time versus space. Because when it comes to prepping, if you're at home and you're on the dining room table or kitchen countertop or something like that, there is actually a lot of speed and turnover that can be developed with space as opposed to smaller areas because you're putting it all out. And if you've got a smaller area or space to work in, then it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer than what someone can produce. Like presumably you have the big lawn. I've not personally been to Prepared for You, but traditionally prep centers have big long working areas and things like that, which means you can be more efficient in the time that you facilitate those type of prep items.
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, for those that might have checked us out, we have a 3D render of our warehouse, so people can kind of get an idea as to what the warehouse looks like internally. And we do, like you say, we have those big long tables, and doing things like a unique bundle can take up a lot of space because, let's say, using the one that you use on the Hive for an example, let's say you've got a big pack of like wooden honey spoons, and then you've got like a multi-case of honey, and then you've got the boxes themselves. Before you know it, you've taken up 5 or 6 feet of a table.
Yeah.
Just laying the products out. Then obviously you need the space to assemble them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I mean. So taking that into account, I think people underestimate it in particular. How much space, how much time, how much effort, that is. So, always a consideration, guys. And this is why I wanted to, put this live together as well, because until you're doing it, until you've done it, it's something you might not have thought of. And you might be on the unique bundle journey and you might be thinking, do you know what? I'm going to prep it all myself. It's going to be easier. It's going to be doing that. And then maybe this conversation has made you think, like I said, those considerations. Is this something I want to be doing myself because I don't actually have the space, or I don't have this to be able to do it? We love posing questions here. We want everyone to be able to think about things within their business, challenge things that ordinarily they may not think about because they don't have the experience of doing it yet.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah,
I know. Who would have known prep could be so complicated, eh?
I know, right? Everybody just thinks it's a case of take item, put it in polybag, but no.
No, absolutely. There's definitely more than that for sure. Rosie says, how does a prep center keep confidential information of the clients? I'm looking for a prep center now, but sometimes seeing someone as a prep center that's also an Amazon seller, so they kind of know everything for your business and is also a competitor. Great question, Rosie.
That is a really good question. So, personally, I think any sort of prep center owner or member of staff in a prep center that's worth their salt, they should restrict themselves to markets that aren't ones covered by their fulfillment service. So then the same deals that are coming through the warehouse aren't the deals that are being sent out. So they can't then just find out who your supplier is, order the same stock as you, and make the same money as you. On top of that, we are not afraid to sign an NDA for things like that, to restrict your methods and things like that specifically to you. We've had it with a few people. Obviously, I can't mention any names or anything, but
no, because you've signed an NDA.
Exactly. Where we're asked to sign NDAs, and we have like service agreements and things that we can put into place for people that need that extra security. Also, all of the staff that work for Prepared For You, whilst they're employed by Prepared For You and after the duration of their employment, they're not allowed to sort of take any information home with regards to that, just in case they were to get the same idea of, oh, if these are doing it, maybe I can. So we have those preventatives in place to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and of course you can only take someone on face value. So you can't help it if someone like works for you and lies to you and they set up an account or anything like that. Again, comes down to that level of communication and relationship that you've built with your prep center. I think there has to be a certain level of trust. You have to take that leap of faith every now and again. I always would consider going for people that are recommended. I think it's an excellent answer, by the way, Eddie. I think for me in particular, with that answer, because of being in this business for a really, really long time, the way that I kind of look at it is there's no real secrets, for anyone that's been in the business for a long time. Even if a prep center owner is a seller, there's rarely a product that would come through the door that I hadn't seen or wouldn't know about or something like that. I'm not taking away from your question, Rosie. It's a brilliant question and absolutely validated in your concerns. Absolutely. But I think asking questions of what you've asked here, speaking to the prep center in question, and having that open line of communication is the most important part to developing trust with someone, because anyone can lie. It's as simple as that. I think I'd be more inclined to trust people who are like, do you know what, we do sell, but we've been doing it for this and we've been doing it for that. There are going to be times, if you're aware of what our store is, There are going to be times that, you know, we may cross over, but, you know, I can assure you that we have our own sources. We have this, we have, you know, whatever. If somebody said that to me, I'd actually be like, okay, well, yeah, you know, more power to you, because that's like, they're being honest, they're being transparent. I think what I've always said, and again, this is not a dig at anyone. So if anyone does have a prep center that does this, it's their own personal choice. For me, more of a red flag would be working with a prep center that has deal sheets or sells deals as well. That would be the bigger red flag for me personally. But like I said, that's not a dig at anyone, or because I know some prep centers do out there. But just for me, I that would be one area that I would prefer to say I'm probably not going to go down that route.
I'd actually had a similar conversation regarding deal sheets, and again, like you say, it's not a pop at anybody. It's just people's opinions. But when we were talking about it with someone else, we found that you know, obviously, if 100 people subscribe to a deal sheet, and then 100 people are looking through the exact same deals, before you know it, those deals are so oversaturated that and all it takes is for one person to have their repricer set up wrong, and you're racing to zero. So you may as well just give it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So from that point of view, like I said, that's for me, that's the only not the only consideration, obviously, but you know, with regards to what Eddie said from his own personal point of view, obviously for their prep center, of course, but generalistic advice, I would just say, just have a conversation. You know, anybody that's not willing, that's trying to sell me a service, or that is I'm trying to buy a service for, if anyone can't spare me a 20-minute chat or 30 minutes of their time, then I'm probably not going to be interested in working with them, because at the end of the day, communication, especially for a prep center, is key. You know, not being able to communicate with your prep center, regardless of, you know, take away pricing, take away what it costs you, communication is above everything, and having a good relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, to be honest with you. Communication is such an important and fundamental part of what a prep center is. You know, without that communication, I mean, who knows where products could be? Who knows what people are supposed to do with them if there's an issue? You know, it's such a core fundamental part that without it, the prep center may as well not exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just touching on that communication, just from a generalist point of view, as a previous prep center owner, and also somebody that's been in the business for a while as well, like I said, that communication is really, really key. But what I will say is, you know, when you are communicating with prep centers, you know, give them a break. Sometimes I know there can be lots of money involved. I know that you could be dealing with like a complaint, lost shipments, or anything like that. But ultimately, give them a break, because they're people too. They haven't done it deliberately. Well, hopefully they haven't. If they have, moved prep centers. And you know, mistakes do happen. You know, humanize the person that you're talking to via Slack or Skype or anything like that whatsoever. Because let's face it, you don't want the ag. You want to sort it out. But there's only so much you can do. So it's better to be able to, you know, talk reasonably and come to a you know, a win-win solution.
That honestly, I could not have put it better myself, to humanize the situation. You see so many people that dehumanize it and look at it as just a service, not a person that's just at the other end of a keyboard that's trying to fix your problem that, you know, might not even lie with them. It could be something Amazon side. You know, like let's say Amazon have booked in 15 out of 16, but that shipment's still in receiving status. But because somebody's so eager to get products in, they can get really fired up when something's only partially booked in or partially received. You know, there could be a mountain of boxes that they've got to get through and just forgot to scan one item, or it could be in 2 different boxes. But if you're so on it all the time, it's very easy to become consumed by it, and you dehumanize the service.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say that, guys, and that applies to not just prep centers, but that applies to, anybody that you work with in a service capacity. Humanize it, and be kind. Doesn't cost anything. And I'm a big believer in killing with kindness at the end of the day. So yeah, lose your rag, and you won't get anywhere with me.
It's the nicest way I've ever heard it put.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So just picking up on that actually again, because this is something I find that I, as a previous prep center owner as well, people often ask me advice on this. Now this will be prep center dependent, I think, but there should be a general kind of rule that kind of fits this. So I want to hear your thoughts on it first, Eddie, and then but I'd imagine most prep centers do operate in this way. It's level of responsibility for stock at what point. So when somebody sends something to you, you have it on site and then it gets sent to Amazon. What is your liability at that? What are you responsible for if something was to be damaged or go missing?
So up until the point that it's unpacked by the prep center, obviously it's the responsibility of the courier, because if they drop the box for any reason, obviously, whilst they might turn around and say, unless you contest it at the point of delivery, you're receiving the goods in okay condition, but you can't know until you've opened the box. Then while they're in the prep center, obviously they are our responsibility, and they're our things to be held accountable for. But as soon as they've left us, up to a point, there is sort of like that crossover with it all.
Yeah.
There's a sort of point where it becomes, is it the prep center's fault? Is it the carrier's fault?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we all know it comes to sort of 3 o'clock, the carrier doesn't want to be at work, so they're just throwing boxes on the back of the van.
Yeah.
So then it comes down to like, right, okay, how much of it's broken? Is it an issue with maybe there wasn't enough filler in the box, or is it that the carrier has thrown the box from like 6 feet out the back of his van? And usually with those kind of things, you'd be able to just sit and think about it a little bit, and you'd usually figure out where that crossover meets.
Yeah.
So, really a prep center is more responsible for your products while they're with them, and obviously unique individual use cases for between leaving and arriving with either the customer, the client, or Amazon.
Yeah, so each case, whilst there is a generalistic rule, each case will always be looked at under its own merits.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got 50 items in a box that's damaged, obviously that's more likely a carrier issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's one item, then it's potentially something that's just been overlooked or something like that, potentially.
Quite possibly, yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think that was pretty much the same. I mean, we always had the argument, and I always see it as a generalistic rule, and we always aligned it with, responsibility, actual legal responsibility. And it is a case of it's always the responsibility is always with the sender, except with the case of a prep center, because with Amazon, it's actually being collected. You're not sending it, it's actually being collected. So it's the legal responsibility of the supplier. So if I order from Tesco's, it is up to Tesco, the onus is on Tesco to prove that I have received that product. And I think that there's a little bit of a blurred line there for a lot of people. They think, oh, if I ring up Tesco and I don't know my rights, they could say, well, we've delivered it, I've got a signature. Well, okay, no, it's up to them to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that I have physically received that product. And this is where we see a lot of issues with prep centers, because like you said, if you've got an every driver in it, it's 5 o'clock on a Saturday, do they just dump them outside? Do they do this? Do they do that? It's very rare that you can't find a solution, but ultimately, and it sounds like, I know I can understand the frustration of people, because to the client, it sounds like you're fobbing them off, but actually it's not. It is the responsibility of the retailer or the supplier. And if they cannot prove that, then the responsibility lies with them and not the prep center.
That is probably one of the most common things that we have with regards to carriers. The amount of times we get sent a photo of, something outside the building.
Yeah.
So let's just assume worst case, and the carrier knows exactly what they're doing, and they're taking that photo so they can leave it on the back of their van. But then you've also got, like we said, a carrier that's rushing around. They're taking the photo. They've not put the box down yet, and they just pick up the next one and think that that's the first box. So then they don't scan it, but they also put it on the back of the cage. So then it's not marked as delivered, but you know, they're putting one that they've already scanned back. So
Yeah,
the amount of times that we get, oh, this should be with you, here's your sort of proof of delivery, and we will spend hours scouring the warehouse for, like, you know, has somebody put this where it's not supposed to go? Which,
yeah,
9 times out of
again
10
happens.
Yeah, like we have, again, speaking just from Prepared For You sort of way of looking at things, we have a massive, like, it's 4 sheets of 8x4 on a table, and that's where all of our, like, inbound goes, and then we have our booking in team that works consistently to get that clear, but that'll usually be a case of, like, once it's broke down into individual people's piles, it'll be a case of, right, are every single pile that person, is there something that we've not quite looked at, you know, or something that's been put in the wrong place? And yeah, it's, like I say, it's one of the biggest issues we face probably day to day with, well, this is apparently there. We're doing our best to find it for you, but please contact the carrier, because there's every chance it might be sat at the depot and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we'll just wait for them to ring up about it.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to go above and beyond, right? You know, because they're a massive, big company. Whereas what tends to happen is you tend to have the smaller prep center company and the smaller seller, and they go at it at each other essentially. Whereas the big company doesn't really care. So, you know, you guys are better off working together to go against the bigger company, you know, essentially. That's the best way. But it comes back, guys, communication. Build a good enough relationship with your prep center, that you can have these type of conversations that, you know, like I said, you guys are providing that you're spoken to in an appropriate way. You know, you encourage these type of conversations and think you don't want anyone to suffer in silence.
No, exactly that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all working together towards a common goal. You know, you want to make money. We want to help you make money by sending your stuff into Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. One can't exist without the other. It's like the circle of Amazon life. You know, it's the fundamentals of it for sure. So just tagging onto that little bit again, another question that I get, you know, hear about all the time is that understanding of, and this is for anybody, again, Eddy will talk about specifically from Prepared For You point of view, but this is a question to ask, you know, when you're speaking to that prep center owner or when you're speaking to an operations manager, if you're deciding whether or not to go for them, is the security of your products whilst they are in your you know, possession, essentially. So it's not unreasonable. Like for me, I would be very upfront and honest, and I would be, what's your liability? What are you covered for? What could I expect if something happened? You know, I'd ask some, you know, quite kind of telling questions in that case. So again, no issues with someone asking you those type of questions, right?
No, not at all. From a security point of view, the building's manned between 7 and 10, Monday to Friday, and 9 to 5 on weekends. So we've got a manned presence there pretty much all the time. We've got a grade 3 alarm system with a private response company, which includes our CCTV. So they're constantly monitoring our CCTV, even during the working day. You know, to make sure that if anything does go awry, they're straight on it at the drop of a hat. They're there within 5 minutes.
Wow.
So, you know, let's say, hypothetically speaking, someone was to come and kick in one of our doors, within 5 minutes, there would be response on site and they'd be in the building. We also have strobe lights. So if anybody is successful enough to get through and set the alarm off, they're disoriented by the strobes.
Nice. So be wary, epileptic burglars. Do not attempt to rob Prepared For You in Gainsborough.
From a protection perspective, I set it off once by accident, and it was just as we were leaving for the day. It was pitch black in the warehouse, and it is the most like unnerving thing you'll ever see in your life, because
I've never
one
heard of that.
second, yeah, 1 second you can see, the next second it's pitch black, and it's like on and off like that. So it's almost like you're seeing life frame by frame.
Oh, wow. I
Yes.
remember that back in the 90s, but that is for a whole different reason, for sure, definitely. It's good to see that that's being used for other cases. I think the only ones that I've sort of seen around the industrial estate that we're on, they've got those, and Matt's previous business used to have this, but now I'm older, it's one of those things that's like, did that really happen? Or I know, is that a sound that it puts off? Have you heard about those? The sound that it gives out that only younger people can hear. Have you not heard
Oh,
about those?
no.
So what it does is it puts out, it's like an alarm, and if you're of a certain age, you can it becomes like really intense, kind of like high pitched noise. But if you're over 40, because obviously it's assuming it's very age discriminatory, of course, but they're assuming that if someone's going to rob it, it's generally going to be a younger person, and because of the tone, only a certain amount of people can hear it. It's like a dog whistle, I suppose, or something like that. So
So
yeah,
if
I mean, I'm past the age of being able to hear it.
so if you're a 45-year-old robber, you've basically got free pickings.
Yeah, but without epilepsy for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you are, there we go. Who thought we would give these tips? If that's the career for you. No epilepsy and over 45, get into cat burgling for sure. By the way, that is a joke, guys. For anyone that's listening that doesn't know me, that is my sense of humor. So yeah. Cindy said I was going to say the same thing about raving. Absolutely, for sure. So everything's covered. It's secured as much as it can be, in terms of, it's one of those things, it's uncomfortable conversation. People don't like to think of the worst. They want to think about, like, how much money the service is going to, make them and things like that. But ultimately, these are the type of questions that you should be asking to any type of person that you are going to be pacing, for all intents purposes, potentially thousands of pounds worth of inventory with them. So you want to make sure that, you're covered not only through an insurance point of view, but what security measures. And if people don't feel comfortable asking it, again, could be another, answering those questions, or they're not prepared to answer those questions, that could be a red flag for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just again, touching from a prepared for you point of view, when it comes to security, location can be a really, really big thing as well. Like for prepared for you, we're sort of in the heart of Gainsborough Town Centre. We're not on sort of like your usual quiet industrial estate. So there's always the hustle and bustle of town life. On top of that, we're surrounded by like quite large companies. So we've got Lidl just opposite us and Boys next door. But then we've also got, I think it's like 10 or 15 businesses to the rear of us. So you've got council CCTV to rely on. You've got all those buildings CCTV to rely on, as well as having a good location that's constantly busy. Whereas when you've got a prep centre that's on an industrial estate, at night it gets quiet. Not a lot of people go down there unless it's like your sort of boy racers that are, looking out to cause mischief, or people that have got riot intents.
Or they go and eat their McDonald's down. We just get loads of people that eat their McDonald's down in the car park by us and just chuck them out. And there's a bin there, guys. Just put it in the bin. So annoying. Just get the wrong uns hanging around eating McDonald's. And that's a really good point. I remember Paul having that conversation when he spoke. I didn't even ask the question, and he spoke about that level of security, and that he was very specific and strategic in why he went for that site, because I hope you don't mind me saying this, is actually because of the this is what he shared with me, it's because of its location, where it is, the level of security that it's got, that you pay a lot more than you would do with like a standard warehouse, because it has those extra levels to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the warehouse that Prepared for You has is a sort of retail grade warehouse. So whereas for most warehouses of a similar size, you'd probably be looking maybe £8,000 a quarter. Prepared for You is just about double that.
Oh, so that's Bournemouth prices then.
Yeah, it's a retail grade building. It's easy on the eye. I mean, anybody that's seen the warehouse on Facebook,
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah,
we don't mind saying it's probably one of the most attractive warehouses we've ever seen.
Oh, that's a post if ever I'm going to put one in the group, right? You guys need to vote on which is the most attractive prep center. You've thrown yourself out there now, Eddie. You've put yourself out there. There we
fine
go.
I don't mind saying myself. I've never found a warehouse attractive, but that one's easy on the eye.
There we go. All of these kinks that we're finding out for sure. Right. Moving swiftly on. So one thing, again, that kind of leads us to, costings and things like that. And, Dan asked a question earlier on with regards to costs. So we'll come on to that in a little bit in a moment. But just before we move on to that and talk about, because there's been a lot of changes in the world of prep, especially over the last 12 to 18 months, with regards to rising prices and different types of services and cost of materials, cost of labor. It's like been this culmination of a perfect storm of increases across the board. But just before we go on and talk about that, is there could you just talk us about expectations again, obviously from your point of view, because I'm all about this. If never mind the buy box does anything else, it's I like to manage people's expectations when it comes to services or paid things or what they can expect when it comes to selling on Amazon. And one of the biggest transitions when it comes to a prep center is expectation versus reality from a customer's point of view, but also from a prep center's point of view. So talk us through the process of when somebody joins you, what can they expect in terms of turnaround and what is the process?
Okay, so when somebody joins up with us, people will sign up through our website. Within half an hour, we should have all the documentation and the sheet sent over to them. They'll be assigned an account handler and asked for their Skype ID. They'll then send all the information back to us. We'll then set up their group chat, introduce them to their account handler, and offer them, a call if they're interested in one to get them started. Again, if at any point they need one, they can book a call with us through our website, through our online calendar, to see what sort of availability we've got. As far as actual turnaround and things like that go, we always try our best to work towards 48 hours, even during the busiest of the year. I think during Q4 last year, we still managed with 150 clients, 72-hour turnaround.
Wow.
So we not only had the UPS van turning up and like parcel force for all the DG stuff, but we were getting in our own van and we were taking like 1.5 loads a day to the local UPS depot just to make sure that we were keeping things out, because UPS weren't able to send extra vans out because obviously it's Q4, they're stretched thin as it is. They upped us to 7-day collections just to try and get rid of some more of the stuff, but we ended up having to take the excess ourselves, just to like manage that from our people going to end up with far too much stock sat here that they're waiting on going out before Christmas. They can also expect obviously a very high level of service. It's something that we pride ourselves on. Like I said to you earlier, we're a larger company with the heart of a small one. We treat every client as though they're our only client in that regard, which is really important. Again, communication, they can expect regular communication from us, and I'd like to think that other prep centers would be the same, making sure that they're speaking with their clients at all times to make sure that they're aware of any issues. If they've not quite got enough to make a box, that they're being communicated with. Like let's say instead of 22 kilos, you've only got 18. Like, do you want sending out? Or if you've only got 5, but you've not got much left on your purchase log, kind of thing. Like, do you want this sending out, or are you due to put some more on your purchase log? So we'll hold the stock for you.
But you'll hold someone's hands if they've never done it before, onboard them and be able to, walk through and talk through that process. Like I said, have that expectation. I know everyone wants 24-hour service and things like that, but one of the things that you guys have got to manage when it comes to signing up for this service, there's always a trade-off. There is always a trade-off. I will say that a million times. If that trade-off is not monetary, it's generally time or it's physical. So in this case, again, feel free to contradict me, but nobody is going to prep quicker than you can yourself. So you have to be able to, depending on circumstances, of course, and everything like that. And it's not because it's the prep center, wanting to be slow or, or anything like that. Of course, you guys want the stuff out. You don't want it clogging up the warehouse. Your warehouse is big, but it's only big enough. You don't want stuff hanging around all the time. But you have to accept that if you engage the services of a prep center, then it is likely not going to move as quickly as you can move it yourself. So that expectation needs to be met. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you should accept really long lead times, but having that open communication with the prep center, asking them those questions: what KPI, what SLAs do they have? What can they expect as a client? Again, I'm never going to hold anyone to it. You said it was 48 hours and it's been 49 hours. How are you going to compensate me? There's always going to, it's always approximate, right? But as a customer of your guys as well, I know this. The communication is brilliant through, email and things like that. If things are taking a bit more time or you're short staffed because of staff sickness, you let people know. You don't, you're proactive about it. That's what I'm trying to say.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So as you were saying, communicating with the prep center and managing expectation is very important. If we're having issues for any reason, like you say, we'll let people know. Same, and I hope the same goes vice versa. From a seller's perspective, if a seller's having issues, that they'd let us know so that we know, right, they're not abandoning all the stock that they've got with us that's not listed, or they've not just left and found another prep center without letting us know. Because again, from a prepared for you perspective, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other prep centers that work the same, we have allocated bays. So throughout our warehouse, every single person's stock is kept in a particular area, so it's all kept together. It's not distributed in like picking and packing totes. So if somebody leaves and doesn't speak to us about it, we'll have a bay that's sat there empty for 3 months before it's reassigned to somebody. Which can in itself cause its own congestion, because if we get a new client and we've not quite got round to finding a bay for them yet, it could go in that day. So like we keep going back to, communication is the biggest thing with a prep center.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys are hearing a little bit of a trending, cycle here. Communication for sure. What would you say, just before we go on and talk about the costs, because we are going to be coming into Q4, we are going to start talking about it more. It's actually illegal to talk about it before the start of July. But now July is gone, we can officially start talking about Q4. We're going to ramp up and talk about it a little bit more. What do you do as a prep center to manage those, peak times? There are other peak times throughout the year, but Q4 is undoubtedly going to be the busiest for any of us in this type of business. So how do you, as a company, as an operations manager, how do you deal with that in terms of staffing, managing customers' expectations, keeping everyone happy, and keeping Paul the boss happy as well?
So Prepared for You has a tried, tested, and scalable system that was, I would say, stress tested last year, just to sort of iron out the creases.
Yeah.
As I said maybe 20 minutes ago, even during the height of Q4 last year with 150 clients, we still managed 72 hours. We're constantly looking at ways to improve our service, to make things as efficient and as dialed as possible. including like this express service that we do to the UPS depot to make sure that stock isn't sitting with us for too long when UPS is stretched thin. So during the busiest points of the year, we're still making sure that we're keeping service to as high a level as possible, because we hold ourselves to that kind of service level. You know, we don't settle for anything less than the best. And like with the common theme that we've had with communication, you know, if there's any delay for any reason, we let people know, because it's important that they're aware, so they're not like, why is my stock not going?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's brilliant. You know, the fact that you acknowledge it, you've put things in place to be able to do it, and you know that's really key to working with someone who is going to give you that level of answer when it comes, because you know Q4 can be stressful enough as it goes. So one of the things I wanted to talk about very quickly is that expectation of cost. You know, when transferring to a prep center, which you haven't done before, so making that transition from self prep to moving to a prep center, because I see a lot is the costing catching people out. So I'm not talking about your costing in particular. So one of the things I want to just make people aware of is, if you feel that this is a transition that you want to make, that you need to make, because like you said earlier, Eddie, you know, self prep is essential. You know, we encourage everyone to do it to learn the system, but it does come to a point where it becomes limiting. You know, your business, you are only one person, and you either come down to that point of, you know, do I go down the warehouse route and that, or do I pick a prep center? You know, that tends to be the age old kind of argument. My personal suggestion is a prep center first before a warehouse, purely not only from a cost or responsibility. You know, you can come and go as you please, so there's a not level, well, presumably you can, and again, I probably wouldn't work with anyone who couldn't, but you can come and go as you please, and you know, you're not tied in or anything like that. So it's a great way to be able to financially also test and support whether you could financially support your own warehouse, because, you know, prep up to a certain amount of units, and again, feel free to contradict me, it's, you know, more cost effective to use a prep center. But then when you get past a certain amount of units, say someone like Johnny, you know, ridiculous 2,000 units processed and sold every day, you know, from his point of view, it is actually cheaper from a cost effective point of view and an operations point of view for him to have his own warehouse. So now it doesn't mean to say you get to a certain level of SKUs or a certain level of shipments processed or units sold that, you know, you cross the threshold that no prep center will deal with you beyond that point. But it's something that, again, open levels of communication, you can talk about. You don't have to go all in. This is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, I know people that have we have our own warehouse, but we still use prep centers. You know, there are strategic reasons for doing this. And I'm not a really big fan of having all of your eggs in one basket, you know, for any point of view, from a selling, from a sourcing, and from a, you know, a preparation point of view as well. So, you know, if you are thinking about this transition, you're not sure if it's for you, test the waters. My biggest bit of advice, one, like I said, see if someone will give you the time of day, 20-minute chat so you can ask all these different types of questions, and test the waters. Again, I can only speak from a generalistic point of view. Eddie can elaborate a little bit more from prepared for you point of view. But you know, I want someone to understand my needs as a client. So, you know, I'm going to be quite open. I'm going to say, look, I've not done this before. So therefore, I want to test the water. I want to see how I react, how you react. And anyone, again, that's not prepared to do that, little bit of a red flag in that respect. And also, you know, you don't have to go from night to day overnight. You can start by just sending a prep center your bundles, or just maybe one type of category, or X amount of units per week. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 overnight, because there's a lot of transition, which, you know, if you work with a company like Prepare For You, they're going to handle. But not only that, there's a lot of cost implication as well, because prep is an upfront paid service. And with the greatest of respect to anyone, and I know you guys don't think like this, obviously, I'm just using it as a generalization. They don't care if you sell the item, they've done the work. Okay. So you guys have to pay for it up front, regardless of whether you sell it at a profit, a loss, or whatever. So you have to be able to factor in that cost in your business. So whenever you start, even if you do not use a prep center, factor in the cost of prep before you use a prep center, even, you know, even 3 months before, 6 months before. I would do it from day dot, to be perfectly honest, so it's not a big shock when it happens. Oh, glass of water now. Sorry, I just went into a prep rant then. The prep mist took over and I just went into a prep rant. But yeah, obviously I wanted to cover that from a generalistic point of view, but from your point of view, is there anything you wanted to add to that, or contradict?
I mean, I think you've covered it pretty well. There is a point in everyone's Amazon selling journey where you have to assess where your bottleneck is. So be it from you know, moving from home prep to from home prep to a prep center, moving from a prep center to a warehouse. And as you said before, you have a warehouse, but you use prep for certain other things. We have a few clients like that are, you know, they'll send us their overflow or stuff that's on quick turnaround or something like that their staff wouldn't necessarily have the time to deal with in the manner they need it dealing with, because they might have 50,000 units that they've got to get out, but they need these 4 pallets dealing with by Wednesday. Same with, you know, moving from a prep center to a warehouse. You've got all the associated costs of a warehouse, whereas, you know, it might be 50p, a pound here or there for like prep. You've now got to find £5,000-6,000 a month to pay your staff, to pay your warehouse, to pay your business rates. So it's all associated costs. And like you say, you reach a point in your journey when you might reach Johnny's level, and it's time to move over to that, because that's what will work best for your business. But it's also having the sort of critical thinking to make those decisions as they're needed to be made, and seeing it from a higher level perspective of like, right, this is how I can improve my Amazon business, and this is what's going to propel me to where I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And and having those types of conversations, God, we keep coming back to it, communication, but I just can't stress how important it is with having this type of relationship with someone. You know, it's so vital to be able to have that, for sure. So one of the questions that we did get asked when we put out the live was from Dan, and I know that you wanted to have the opportunity, so I will tag Dan in this afterwards if he's not watching. If you are, hi Dan. Not like, you know, I don't mean like make yourself known or anything like that whatsoever, because I know that this is something that has been a contentious kind of issue and subject that's spoken about across the board, not just to do with yourself, but, you know, the general increase in cost when it comes to prep, because we've seen a lot of prep centers putting up their prices recently, and you wanted the opportunity to talk about that, you know, not make an argument for it or a challenge, but, you know, just to explain, you know, what the reasons are behind it, and, you know, and just to make that a bit more transparent.
Yeah. So from our perspective,
of course,
price increases and things, you know, obviously, you've got things like economic factors that have driven up the price of everything. Like, you walk into a shop, and I only learned this about a month ago, the price of a bottle of milk has nearly doubled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd consistently thought it was like £1. It's now like £1.50.
I couldn't even tell you. Isn't that bad? Couldn't even tell you. I was shocked by the cost of a price of a first class stamp a few months ago. That was mental. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I'll digress. You carry on. Don't distract me.
You've got prices of all those sorts of things that have gone up, and that's your prep materials. You know, it's the cost of your electric that I think for a lot of people it's about doubled. You know, you've got things like additional services that we've started putting into place that we don't charge any additional for. You know, like if, let's say it's a liquid and it needs heat sealing, we'll class that as a poly bag, which it might take a little bit longer and it's a little bit more expensive to us, but we don't charge it out as more expensive. It's still charged out at your regular prep, so that again, the quality of service is there, because if it's a bottle that's likely to leak on the way to Amazon, that leak is contained inside a heat sealed bag, so it's not destroying everything else in the box with it. Then you've got things like, yes, okay, fair enough, our pay-as-you-go plan was probably the hardest hit with it. The prices did go up quite drastically with that, but we run the express service and we don't charge anybody any extra for it. We're looking at merchant fulfilled. That's a new service that's due to launch in the next couple of weeks. We're looking at direct fulfillment. We've just recently been approved as an authorized Amazon carrier, so we'll be able to take shipments directly from the prep center to Amazon. So that's a service that we're looking at putting into play. We run the IATA program for anybody that wants to ship international dangerous goods. That was a 3-day long course with an exam at the end of it, that allows us to send dangerous goods anywhere in the world for anybody. So obviously there's all these associated costs with business development, with the rising cost of just running a business, more staff intake, because our business is run from start to end. It's all in-house. There's no outsourcing of anything. There's no external companies like an agency or anything. All the staff that we take on are trained to the same exceptionally high level all the time. So obviously we need to be able to compensate for that. So with your increased staffing comes your increased costs, and with your increased costs, whilst the pricing might have increased a little bit, we do try to give back where possible, like our Q3 promotions that I'll touch on at the end of this. They're our way of passing back the saving that we might make somewhere else. So if we save £500, everybody else saves a bit of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got to be honest, if there's one time that I felt sorry for prep center owners, it's now, because it's been a perfect storm of cost increases that have affected, in most cases, in people's businesses, they get like impacted by, maybe 1 or 2 things, but there's like 5 or 6 key fundamental things to running and the operation of a prep center that have been massively affected by, over the last couple of years. Cost in materials, cost of labor, cost of energy, all of these different costs of transport, everything, cost of fuel, you guys have taken a pummeling. And this is why, again, we're seeing a lot of prep centers go out of business over the last 12 months than have ever done so beforehand, because I call it prep center wars. When we had Easy Prep, a lot of other prep centers popped up around the same time or just afterwards, and they became the price tankers of prep center, and they forced the price down quite a lot, to the point where Matt, who was running the prep center at the time, and said, you know what, I'm not going to go down any further. It's a very labor intensive business. People get a lot of bang for their buck when they pay for a prep center. I don't think they realize how much goes into it, how hard it is, and how tight the margins are when it comes to, running a prep center, because of, your prep center grows. You need extra labor. It's not like running software. You can scale infinitely when it comes to like software or anything that requires that. With prep centers, for every new 10 clients, you need a new member of staff, to handle that. So, and then you get the pain in the ass that comes with running staff as well. Sick, holiday, all these type of things as well. So, I understand why people are frustrated with all of a sudden it costs, but I think what it comes, and this is my own personal opinion on it, is I know from your point of view, I know from, talking to others and everything like that, people avoid price increases like the plague. They don't want to do them. They avoid them as long as possible. And instead of making those hard decisions when they need to be made, they hold off because you don't want to upset your clients, you don't want to upset this, you don't want to upset that. And then unfortunately, what should be done is like an incremental price increase comes into place as costs go up. But of course, as good people, like you say, the heart of a small business, you don't, it's the last thing you want to do is increase your costs. And then all of a sudden you're forced to, and then you have to do it at quite a dramatic level because you've been sucking it up, for so long. So, I'm gonna be a cheerleader on the side of all prep centers here, that I say that, do you know what, guys, if your prep center is putting their prices up, if you can, try and accommodate it as much as possible, especially if you're getting good service and you're happy with it. Price isn't everything, but I understand, big increases. I get it. I totally do. But I suppose what I'm trying to say from my own personal point of view is the prep centers, they're not being assholes. They really do not want to do it. And unfortunately, you've just been backed into a corner with like this culmination of just being pummeled with so many increases across the board.
I mean, obviously, you'll probably know yourself, the cost of a poly bag has gone up nearly 30%. Same with, like cardboard boxes. I think they've gone up, say, between 15 and 20%, depending on where you order them from. So, all the time it's hammering those margins, and it just gets to that stage where you're like, right, now we've got to do something about it. And one way that Prepared For You combated the price increase was to introduce a lot more plans, which I know it can be a little bit complex to look through when you're looking at the website, but some of the plans that we've got have got a really small monthly fee, and it reduces your prep costs.
Yeah.
But that little fee offsets the saving for a lot of people. Like, in your first 15 or 20 units, you're already saving money, even though you've got a monthly subscription.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I knew that this was going to be David that said this, even before I saw the name pop up. Self-prep bottleneck reached. I'm actually happy. I won't be in the garage after today until next week. Need to start transitioning to a prep center. So Dan's come back on. Thanks, Dan, for posting a response. Yeah, like I said, hope you didn't mind me using your name. It's, Eddy wanted to address it correctly. And like I said, it's not any type of counter argument or anything like that whatsoever. It's about being transparent with everything. And again, this is what I love about, people that are prepared to come on camera and be asked these difficult questions, for sure. You want, it's first thing you said to me, you wanted to be able to talk through, because, sometimes you can't get it across what you want to say in an email or something like that, absolutely. So Dan's come back and said, and he has said, thanks, Natalie, for touching on the 40% increase. I still can't see it justified. That's, his opinion, of course, since there are still plenty of 50p unit ones out there. But I'm now self-pressing 100 units in an hour and half on average, which would cost around £90. And, I get that. I totally get it. It's everybody's, own opinion on it. And it comes down to that time versus money, definitely. And I don't want anyone to think we're making light of, oh yeah, you should just pay it and regardless of it and that's it. It's definitely not. It's all considerations have to be taken into account for sure. And I get your argument about still plenty of 50p ones out there. My counter reply to that would be, how long will they be out there for at those prices? And that's not me being, inflammatory or anything like that. That is a genuine, concern as a previous prep center owner, and knowing how tight those margins are in the first place. And also, what you're prepared to pay for, for the quality of service. And again, not talking about Prepared For You specifically, it's all kind of got to be factored in. So, but at the same point, everybody has got a right to be able to pick and choose, what they want to be able to do. And I'm sure if the time came to it, again, another thing that I know would be a red flag to me is that if I left somewhere because I wanted to try somewhere else, or I wanted to do this, and then I did come back. I want to know that I could come back. You know, it wouldn't be a case of, right, you've burned your bridges, that's it, you're off. You know, any reasonable business, you know, should be okay. You know, should be understand in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, obviously can't speak for the prep centers, but I know that, you know, Prepared for You, we always try to sort of, if people do leave, we always try to make sure it's on good terms so that they do know that they can come back if they need to. You know, maybe they were getting a really good deal at a different prep center, and then that prep center thought, you know, I can't honor that at the minute, and I'm gonna, you know, change the prices on this. And then maybe it's not quite cost effective for them. So they're like, right, okay, well, I'll go back to where I was before because I know the service I'm getting and I know the level of quality I'm getting. You know, like you say, everybody's allowed to make their own decisions. I mean, people that are still paying 50 pence a unit, that's absolutely fantastic. You know, if that prep center
use it as much as you can, right?
Exactly. If that prep center can carry on giving it at 50 pence a unit, or, you know, something like that, that's brilliant. But I'd also, if it's a service that you're looking at signing up to, I'd also make sure to have a phone call with them and make sure that there's no hidden costs. You know, it's quite easy for some services to just be like, right, it's this, but then if it needs bubble wrap, it's an extra 10 pence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get that. Gosh, time has flown when we've been talking about the section subject of prep for sure. And thank you for saying that, Dan. That's really nice of you. You know, obviously, you know, by your own admission, you've said that you've had to go elsewhere because of the price increases. But there we go, 100% agree. And he would fully recommend you. Has never had an issue. You know, and there's always that caveat in place. It is a tough one. And, you know, but like I said, keep those lines of communication over. That is the most important part. Well, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, Eddy. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're at that time where it's kind of shameless plug time, essentially. I think you have managed to say Prepared for You enough times that if people didn't know beforehand, that they certainly will. So just talk us very, very briefly of you know what's happening at the moment. You've got a little promotion on, which I'm happy to recommend, obviously, because I do use you guys as a subject, and you've tried to put this together to kind of counterbalance some of those you know, price increases where you can, obviously. So, you know, I get that, but also if anyone does, this is not a hard sell, if anyone does want to reach out to these guys, they'll also put a link up where you guys will be able to reach out and talk specifically more about your own circumstances.
Yeah. So Prepared for You at the minute has got a few offers that are running throughout the duration of Q3. Anybody that signs up to our pay-as-you-go plan will receive Tanzanite pricing with no monthly fee, which I think is around 15 to 20 pence saving per unit. Anybody that signs up to our international shipping plan, they're getting a reduction on tiers at the moment. And we've got half price memberships for anybody that signs up to a membership subscription. So let's say you sign up to Opal, which I believe is $39.99. You'll get that for £20 for the duration of Q3. You know, we're looking at releasing some more in Q4, things that will be rolling 12-month ones for the whole of 2024.
Because that is important, obviously, from a discount point of view. I understand that you're doing it obviously to offset the cost of prep and, you know, the increases that you've had to make lately and things like that. But obviously it's, you know, it's being aware that this is something, the cost of prep is not going to go down overnight.
No, which is why we're looking at putting on some Q4 offers to give people like a reduction for their first year. You know, if they sign up, they'll get a discount throughout 2024. Cool. Anybody that is interested in you can have a free 30-minute consultation by booking with our online calendar at www.preparedforyoultd.co.uk. I'll leave a link down below.
Please do.
Anybody that's interested in, you know, maybe you've got some questions, or maybe you've got something that wasn't answered here that you'd like to address privately, if you drop us an email at info@preparedforyoultd.co.uk, we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Cool. Well, you guys know where it's at. Like I said, it's you know, if this is a time when you are thinking about it, hopefully this session's helped you out. Hopefully we've answered some of those burning issues when it comes to all of your prep needs, and whether or not it's the time for you. But like I said, just going back to what we said at this, many prep centers, you know, not just talking about these guys in particular, you know, they're kind of hesitant to take on clients in Q4 because most of them factor around their SLAs, their KPIs, you know, on the clients that they have going into Q4. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to get into a prep center in Q4, but like I said, you know, you're going to make it a lot easier on yourself, even if you just want to, you know, test the waters at a reduced, you know, at a reduced capacity. Now's the time to do it, because, you know, you're going to get a skewed level of service during Q4. It's, you know, potentially you could be experiencing a slower service than you would at the rest of the time, or, you know, I know it's very easy to say, oh, you know, I work with you guys, so yeah, I can testify the fact that it wouldn't, but, you know, generalistically across the board, if you're going to test a prep center, now is the time to do it. So, you know, reach out to whoever you need to, have a chat with people. And like I said, kiss a few frogs. And, you know, I'm a big advocate in, you know, putting yourself out there, testing, and, you know, seeing what comes back, for sure.
Yeah, that. I honestly couldn't agree with you more about the Q4 thing. Whether it's us or whether it's that one that's still managing to offer 50 pence a unit, I'm sure their doors will fill up pretty quickly. So get yourself in
this year for sure.
Yeah, get yourself in while there's still space with prep centers, so that you can have a dialed in expectation coming in for Q4.
Absolutely. Right. Well, like I said, doesn't time fly when you're having so much fun talking about prep? You have definitely made it a sexier subject for us, Eddy. There's no doubt about it, for sure. So thank you for your time today, for your insight and your experience, because like I said, you know, it's one of those kind of services that, you know, people there's generally quite a bit of cost involved, a lot of responsibility. So thank you for lifting the lid and giving us a bit more of an insight into not only how does Prepared For You run, but also the prep in general. So that's always really helpful. Thank you. So I'm back next week. I don't think I'm on holiday till the week after. Got to get that one in there, obviously. So, and I can't remember who's on with me next week. So apologies for that. So we'll just have it as a never mind the buy box surprise. I don't know if it's one of the guys or whether or not I think it's a guest. Now I'm like, is it a guest? Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's leave it as a surprise anyway. So as always, I will be back this time next week to talk about all of your Amazon you know, problems and successes. But yeah, Eddy, thanks so much for dropping in. We really, really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll come back and see us again soon. We won't do it in Q4 because we know how busy you'll be.
Well, thanks ever so much for having me, Natalie. It's been absolutely fantastic chatting with you. And, you know, if ever you wanted to do this again, I'm more than happy to.
Cool. Love it, for sure. So have a great week, guys. And I will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.